This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Welcome to the deep dive. You know those sometimes blurry reflections you see in a mirror?
Yeah.
Today we're diving deep into that, especially when you're looking at something far away,
Right.
even though your close-up vision is like totally clear.
Right.
So get ready, folks. We're going to uncover the science behind this. I mean, this is an everyday mystery,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
We'll be exploring how our eyes focus, what mirrors really do,
Okay.
and even touch on some physics with refraction.
Oh, wow.
You might be surprised to learn there's a connection between this and pretty advanced tech,
Okay.
like fiber optics.
Interesting. It is fascinating how, like, a common experience
Yeah.
can lead to such a deep dive into light and vision.
Exactly. So to get us started, you mentioned in your notes that you have good close-up vision,
Yeah.
but distant objects in the mirror
Yeah.
appear blurry.
Correct.
So let's unpack that puzzle.
Okay.
Where do we even begin?
Well, the journey begins with how our eyes work, specifically a process called accommodation.
Accommodation.
Yeah.
Does that mean like my eyes are getting a comfy upgrade?
Not quite.
Okay.
It refers to how the lens in your eye changes shape to focus light from objects at various distances onto your retina.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like adjusting a camera lens?
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah. So for distant objects, your eye lens flattens out.
Okay.
And for close-up objects, it becomes rounder.
Makes sense.
This adjustment ensures that those light rays hit the retina just right
Got it.
for a clear image.
So how does this relate to blurry mirror reflections?
Here's the catch. If you have trouble focusing on things far away,
Yeah.
a common issue
Yeah.
with nearsightedness,
Yeah.
those distant objects will look blurry in a mirror,
Yeah.
even if the mirror itself is close to you.
Okay.
And that's because the light travels the same distance to reach your eye,
All right.
whether you're looking directly at the object or at its reflection.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the mirror isn't actually bringing the object closer,
Right.
like some magic trick.
No, it's just redirecting the light.
Exactly.
Which brings us to another interesting concept, the virtual image.
Virtual image. Sounds futuristic. Are we talking holograms?
Not quite a hologram,
Okay.
but it is an illusion of sorts.
Interesting.
Our brains interpret the reflected light as coming from behind the mirror,
Okay.
creating that sense of depth.
So even though the mirror's right there, my brain thinks the object is farther away.
Yes. And because of that, your eye still needs to accommodate
Okay.
for that perceived distance, just like when viewing the object directly.
Gotcha.
And that's why if your vision makes it difficult to focus at that distance, the reflection will be blurry.
Okay, so mirrors are tricking our brains a bit.
Yeah.
But this is where I get confused. Why is it that when I look at a photograph of something far away,
Yeah.
it's perfectly clear?
Right.
The object in the photo is distant, but I'm holding the picture right here.
Right.
Shouldn't it be blurry too?
That's an excellent observation, and it highlights a fundamental difference between mirrors and photos.
Okay.
While mirrors reflect light and retain the depth of the scene,
Uh-huh.
photos capture and flatten a 3D scene onto a 2D surface.
So it's like the camera lens does the focusing work up front.
You got it.
Okay.
And the photo just shows us the final result.
Okay.
Think of a photo like a painting.
Okay.
You're focusing on the surface of the canvas,
Right.
not the depth within the artwork.
Okay.
The camera lens has already taken care of that depth when the picture was taken.
That's a helpful way to look at it. So with a photo, I'm just focusing on the flat surface,
Yeah.
not the original distances
Yeah.
of the objects in the picture.
Right.
Mystery solved.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, the whole light bending thing
Yeah.
still feels a bit like magic.
That's where refraction comes into play.
Okay.
Light actually bends when it travels
Yeah.
from one medium to another,
Oh,
like
yeah.
from air to water,
Makes sense.
or even through the lens of your eye.
Hold on. So light doesn't always travel in a straight line.
Nope. This bending happens because light's speed changes
Okay.
depending on the material it's moving through.
Hmm.
Think of how sound travels differently through air versus water.
Yeah.
That change in speed affects how we perceive the sound.
Okay.
Light behaves similarly.
Okay. So what does this have to do with blurry reflections?
Well, remember how we talked about your eye's lens changing shape to focus light?
Yeah.
That focusing ability relies on refraction.
Okay.
The lens bends the incoming light rays to converge perfectly on your retina.
Okay.
But if your lens isn't bending the light correctly
Right.
because of how your vision works, things get blurry.
I see the connection now. So refraction is kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yes.
It helps us see clearly.
Yeah.
But it can also be the reason things look blurry.
Precisely. And this bending of light is happening all around us. You've probably noticed how a straw seems to break at the surface of a glass of water, right?
I've always wondered about that.
That's refraction in action. Light travels slower in water than in air.
Okay.
So when it passes from water into air, it bends.
Yeah.
And that bending creates the illusion of the straw being broken.
So light bends, creating a visual illusion. It's like our eyes are being tricked again.
In a way, yes. And there's a physics principle, Snell's law,
Okay.
that describes exactly how much the light bends
Okay.
based on the materials involved.
Interesting.
But let's not get bogged down with the technical details just yet. The key takeaway here is that light can bend.
Got it.
And that bending plays a crucial role in how we see the world,
Right.
including those sometimes blurry reflections.
This is all starting to make sense.
Good.
Mirrors preserve depth.
Mm-hmm.
Photos flatten it.
Right.
And our eyes use this cool refraction trick to
Yeah.
focus.
Exactly.
But before we move on, you also mentioned something called total internal reflection.
Yes.
That sounds pretty intense.
It is.
What's that all about?
And it's one of the most fascinating applications of refraction.
Okay.
Imagine light trying to exit a denser medium, like water,
Uh-huh.
at a really steep angle.
Okay.
Sometimes the angle is so steep
Yeah.
that the light can't escape. It gets completely reflected back inside.
Whoa, so it's like the light hits a wall and bounces right back in.
Exactly. And this principle is what makes fiber optic cables work.
Okay.
Light stays trapped inside the cable, bouncing back and forth,
Mm.
allowing data transmission over long distances.
Wait, so those cool, glowing fiber optic lamps?
Yeah,
That's total internal reflection at work.
you got it.
Wow.
It's also the same principle that makes diamonds sparkle.
Interesting.
But to really grasp how refraction works
Ugh.
on a microscopic level,
Yeah.
we need to talk about photons.
Photons, those tiny particles
Yeah.
of light.
Yes,
This deep dive is getting deeper by the minute.
it is. But trust me, it's worth it. Photons are incredibly interesting because they behave as both waves and particles. It's called wave-particle duality,
Okay.
one of the cornerstones of quantum mechanics.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. But how can something be a wave and a particle at the same time?
It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But numerous experiments have shown light exhibiting properties of both.
Okay.
Think of a wave on the ocean. It spreads out and oscillates, right?
Yeah.
Light can do that too,
Uh-huh.
which is how we get phenomena like interference patterns.
Okay.
But light can also act like a discrete particle,
Okay.
like a tiny billiard ball
Yeah.
carrying a specific amount of energy.
Wow. So when we talk about refraction,
Yeah?
are we focusing on the wave aspect of light?
Both, actually.
Wow.
Refraction is best understood by considering light as a wave.
Okay.
When a light wave,
Hmm.
which is essentially a stream of photons,
Yeah.
enters a denser medium,
Uh-huh.
its speed changes.
Okay.
This, in turn, affects the direction of the wavefront.
Okay.
Each individual photon then follows this new altered direction.
So it's like the photons are surfing on the wave, changing direction with it.
That's a great analogy.
Cool.
Now, here's where the particle aspect comes into play.
Okay.
When photons enter a medium, they interact with the atoms in that medium.
Okay. Wait, how does this interaction actually work?
Well, imagine photons passing through a dense forest.
Okay.
They're constantly bumping into trees.
Mhm.
Those are the atoms.
Yeah.
And changing direction.
Okay.
In a denser medium, like glass, there are more trees
Huh.
for the photons to bump into.
Right.
This effectively slows them down,
Yep.
even though they're still zipping along at the speed of light between those trees.
So it's not that the individual photons themselves are slowing down.
Right.
It's more like they're taking a longer,
Yeah.
more roundabout route
Exactly.
through the material.
And this change in speed directly impacts the angle at which the light bends, which is what we observe as refraction.
So are you saying the photons aren't carrying any extra information
Precisely.
about refraction?
The information about refraction is embedded in the changed angle and wavelength of the light
Oh,
as it exits the medium.
Okay. So the material dictates how much the light bends,
Yes.
and the photons just follow along.
Correct.
But how does all of this relate back to our original question about blurry reflections?
Remember, the lens in your eye relies on refraction to focus light onto your retina.
Yeah.
The shape of the lens and the refractive index of the materials inside your eye determine how much the light bends.
Right.
If your lens can't bend the light correctly,
Yeah.
due to nearsightedness, for example,
Right.
the image formed on your retina won't be sharp,
Okay.
resulting in blurriness.
So those blurry reflections in the mirror are ultimately a result of how light is being refracted through the lens of my eye.
Exactly.
It's not the mirror's fault at all.
It all boils down to the interplay between light, refraction, and the incredible focusing power, or sometimes lack thereof, of your eyes.
This is fascinating. We've gone from blurry reflections to photons,
I know.
quantum mechanics,
Yeah,
and the very nature of light itself.
I know. It's pretty cool.
This deep dive has been quite a journey so far.
And we're not finished yet. There's still so much more to explore in the world of optics.
Okay.
But for now, let's recap what we've learned.
Sounds like a plan. Let's bring it all together.
We started by trying to understand why reflections in mirrors can be blurry, even if you have good close-up vision.
Yep.
We learned that it all comes down to how our eyes focus light
Right.
through a process called accommodation,
Right.
where the lens in our eye changes shape to adjust for different distances.
And we debunked that myth
Yes.
that mirrors bring objects closer. They're not magic.
Nope.
They simply change the direction of light, creating a virtual image that our brains perceive as being behind the mirror.
Yes.
We also explored the key difference between mirrors and photographs.
Yes.
Mirrors reflect light and preserve depth, while photos capture and flatten a 3D scene
Right.
onto a 2D surface.
Right.
This explains why photos of distant objects appear clear,
Yeah.
even if those same objects would be blurry in a mirror.
Right.
Then we took a deep dive into the world of refraction,
Yes.
learning that light bends when it passes from one medium to another
Right.
due to changes in its speed.
Exactly.
We even touched on Snell's law, which governs this bending, and total internal reflection,
Right.
which is the principle behind fiber optic cables
Yeah.
and those sparkly diamonds.
Yes.
And finally, we explored the mind-blowing concept of photons,
Yes.
the tiny particles of light
Uh.
that exhibit characteristics of both waves and particles.
Right.
We uncovered how photons interact with matter, slowing down in denser materials, which ultimately explains how refraction works at a microscopic level.
Exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like I've just sat through like a crash course
Yeah.
on the fundamentals of optics.
Indeed, we have. But there's still one more part to go, where we'll wrap things up and leave you with some thought-provoking ideas to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready for the grand finale.
Okay.
This is your need to know. This is your need to know. This is your need to know. This is your need to know.
Welcome back to our deep dive. Last time we left off with a little bit of a cliffhanger,
Yeah.
promising to unravel these mysteries of photons
Right.
and how they carry information about refraction.
Yes.
So remind me,
Okay.
what exactly are photons?
So photons are the fundamental particles of light.
Okay.
Think of them as like tiny packets of energy
Okay.
traveling at the speed of light. The mind-bending part is they behave as both waves and particles. It's called wave-particle duality,
Okay.
one of the cornerstones of quantum mechanics.
Okay. I'm officially intrigued. How can something be a wave and a particle at the same time?
It does seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
doesn't it? But numerous experiments have shown light exhibiting properties of both.
Okay.
Think of a wave on the ocean.
Okay.
It spreads out and oscillates right.
Yeah.
Light can do that too,
Uh-huh.
which is how we get phenomena like interference patterns.
Okay.
But light can also act like a discrete particle,
Okay.
like a tiny billiard ball carrying a specific amount of energy.
Wow. So when we talk about refraction, are we focusing on the wave aspect or the particle aspect?
Both, actually.
Right.
Refraction is best understood by considering light as a wave.
Okay.
When a light wave, which is essentially a stream of photons,
Yeah.
enters a denser medium,
Uh-huh.
its speed changes.
Right.
This, in turn, affects the direction of the wavefront.
Okay.
Each individual photon then follows this new, altered direction.
So it's like the photons are surfing on the wave,
Yeah,
changing direction with it.
that's a great analogy.
Cool.
Now, here's where the particle aspect comes in.
Okay.
When photons enter a medium, they interact with the atoms in that medium.
Okay. Wait, how does this interaction actually work?
Well, imagine photons passing through a dense forest.
Okay.
They're constantly bumping into trees.
Right.
Those are the atoms.
Yeah.
And changing direction.
Mm-hmm.
In a denser medium like glass, there are more trees for the photons to bump into.
Right.
This effectively slows them down, even though they're still zipping along at the speed of light
Yeah.
between those trees.
So it's not that the individual photons are slowing down. It's more like they're taking a longer, more roundabout route
Exactly.
through the material.
And this change in speed directly impacts the angle at which the light bends,
Okay.
which is what we observe as refraction.
So are you saying the photons aren't carrying any extra information
Precisely.
about refraction? It's more about how their path is altered by the material.
The information about refraction is embedded in the changed angle and wavelength of the light
Okay.
as it exits the medium.
Okay, so the material dictates how much the light bends,
Yes,
and the photons just follow along.
correct.
But how does all of this relate back to our original question about blurry reflections?
Remember, the lens in your eye relies on refraction to focus light onto your retina.
Yeah.
The shape of the lens and the refractive index of the materials inside your eye determine how much the light bends. If your lens can't bend the light correctly,
Yeah.
due to nearsightedness, for example,
Mm-hmm.
the image formed on your retina won't be sharp,
Right.
resulting in blurriness.
So those blurry reflections in the mirror are ultimately a result of how light is being refracted through the lens of my eye.
Exactly.
It's not the mirror's fault at all.
It all boils down to the interplay between light, refraction, and the incredible focusing power,
Yeah.
or sometimes lack thereof,
Right.
of your eyes.
This is fascinating. We've gone from blurry reflections to photons,
I know.
quantum mechanics,
Yeah,
and the very nature of light itself.
I know. It's pretty.
This deep dive has been quite a journey so far.
And we're not finished yet. There's still one more part to go where we'll wrap things up and leave you with some thought-provoking ideas to ponder.
Okay. I'm ready for the grand finale. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into those blurry mirror reflections. It's been quite a journey.
Yes.
We've gone from these everyday observations to the microscopic world of photons,
Right.
all in an effort to understand those distant objects, why they look fuzzy in the mirror,
Yeah.
even if your close-up vision is sharp.
Right.
So as we wrap up,
Okay.
what's the key takeaway here? What have we learned from exploring eyes and mirrors and photos,
Right.
and even the nature of light?
Well, the big takeaway is that what we see
Yeah.
is not always a completely accurate representation of the world around us. Our perception is influenced by so many factors, from the way our eyes focus light to how our brains interpret the signals
Yeah.
that they receive.
It's almost like we're all living in our own little personalized versions of reality,
Right.
shaped by our vision and how our brains make sense of it all.
That's a great way to put it.
But those blurry reflections,
Yeah.
they're a perfect example of how these factors can lead to, well,
Right.
a less than perfect image.
Okay.
It's not the mirror's fault,
Right.
but rather a combination of, like
Yeah.
you said, your eyes focusing ability, the way light bends, and how your brain interprets the reflected light.
It is pretty amazing to think about.
Yeah, it is. It's mind-blowing.
All the things that are happening
Yeah.
when we look in the mirror.
Every time.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners go from here? What other optical adventures await them?
Well, if they're interested in this whole bending of light thing,
Yeah.
exploring lenses could be fun.
Okay.
You know, lenses are used in everything from eyeglasses
Yeah.
and cameras
Uh-huh.
to telescopes,
Yeah.
all for manipulating light to create images.
And let's not forget about rainbows.
Oh, yeah, those are beautiful.
They're a stunning example of light dispersion.
Where white light is separated into its spectrum of colors
Right.
by refraction through those tiny water droplets.
Yeah.
For a real challenge, they could even delve into the world of optical illusions,
Oh, yeah.
which are always fun,
Uh-huh.
and often perplexing ways to kind of explore the limits of human perception.
It's a good workout for your brain.
I love a good optical illusion.
Me too.
They always make me question what I'm seeing
Yeah.
and how my brain is interpreting the information.
Exactly. They're a fantastic way to keep exploring the mysteries of light and perception.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the science behind blurry reflections.
Wow.
We hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic exploration of how something so commonplace
Yeah.
can unlock a deeper understanding of the world around us.
A huge thank you to our listener for asking such a great question.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It has.
Until next time, keep your eyes open
Yep.
and your minds curious.
This is your need to know.